I want to call you stupid. And I want to call you stupid, and I want to call Perry stupid, and I want to call myself stupid.
It was a safe space for like maybe 15 seconds, by the way.
A Financial Times article asking, have humans passed peak brain power? That's sort of the opening topic here I want to talk about is, well, let me ask you a sincere question first. And I'm going to ask Aiden first because I have a specific example. Do you think you're smarter or dumber than you were when you made this video in 2012?
Master Kevin 45 here.
Do you think you're smarter? Be honest. When you made this video, are you smarter or dumber?
I know it's a little mark, but I'm really happy.
On the whole, I'm smarter, but it's closer than I'd like to admit.
Okay, so that's sort of the theory here is that beginning in 2012, adults and teenagers have reported marked declines in their ability on math and reading scores and their general ability to concentrate. Difficulty thinking or concentrating, trouble learning new things. Around 2012 is when it like starts to decline, and it's been measurably rising or declining in this case ever since.
Wait, so up until
science, reading, math, numeracy, literacy.
What is a little surprising to me is up until 2012, you're saying that it was still trending upwards on the whole, or it was like stagnant and then it dropped. Like, do you know?
I don't have the data. I mean, it looks like 2006, 2012 is pretty flat.
Yeah.
So I would say the 2000s that we peaked, but like it's been rising, flattened out, and now it is declining as of 2012. And you know that's. I think, do you have any thought? Like, Doug, what's your first thought when I...
First thought, I think you and I graduated around 2012. We hit the peak, baby.
That's why we're smart.
Let's fucking go, dude.
Truly representative of the cognitive decline.
I mean, I've thought, so I talked to a teacher friend of mine about like kids and what's been going on. I think as we talk about it, probably need to separate COVID. My friend who's a high school teacher was saying right now, the way he phrased it, the last wave of kids who are really messed up by COVID are finally like starting to leave the school system.
They got rid of them.
Yeah. But they are so messed up. And the way he phrased it was like, these are kids who justifiably have no sense of authority when it comes to like schooling or teaching or parents or anything, because there's this 2-year period where they were just at home and could do whatever they wanted. And he said, as a teacher, there was no way to discipline anybody or stop them from just playing Minecraft all day long.
Right.
And so the structures that we were told as a kid of you have to listen to your parents and go to school and do these things just completely collapsed. And so he said they're like kind of getting used to it again. And like people, you know, the younger kids who were younger during COVID are now sort of like back into like the way our education, right, of the rhythm of how we have traditionally done things. So it sounds like that has really messed things up. And then for me, there's a broader question of like, is it a good thing that our school system is dramatically changing? Because my sense from this article is less that people are dumber and more that people are not doing well on our traditional way of grading intelligence.
Well, I wanted to dig in.
Yeah.
What is is there more information here about like the context of why this is happening or how this is measured? Like what is the rest of the article?
Nobody has an exact answer on why, but they posit some couple things. One is that people are reading less than ever. So the decline of reading is pretty dramatic. Again, right around 2010, 2012. And I want to say 2010 is the year that smartphones took over 50% of the population. So once you say phones bad, everyone loses their mind. But that is like the obvious conclusion they're leaning towards.
You think phones are good? You get to be the villain this episode.
Are you a phones good guy?
No.
Yes.
He's the
I was going
phones guy.
phones bad. I'm phones
he
bad
thinks
guy.
phones are good for kids in the comments.
No, I want to be phones bad.
So phones, and generally it says like our ability to, it's not like reading is getting specifically worse or math specifically worse. It's that our ability to process information, like take in information, process it, and it's almost like when your brain turns on and has to work a little bit, we've sort of pushed past that. And they point to a lot of things. One of them they say is not even that it's phones, but it's infinite scrolling on media.
Yes.
To where it kind of like anytime you get in discomfort, you just move on to the next thing. Like your brain does not get comfortable sitting in the discomfort of thought. Go for it. Yeah.
Could I posit my? I'll give
What's
my
Aiden's theory on intelligence?
Anecdotal theory on this, because this is something that I've thought a lot about. Self-reflecting. I feel dumber in some ways than I used to be when I was younger. Actually.
Okay.
And the biggest thing that I noticed was as I've gotten older, my ability to speak in the way I want and instantly come to the words and ways I want to describe things and explain things has gotten less sharp. over time, particularly in, I would say, the last like 5 to 6 years. I feel like I was actually better at finding the words to explain things and speak to people when I was younger. And I think that tracks really directly in my mind with the amount that I read. Because I barely have read up until this year. So maybe before this year, I had not read a whole book in maybe 5 or 6 years. And my habit of reading like every day obsessively has been gone since basically the beginning or middle of high school. And I think reading in general, or maybe if you intently listen to audiobooks, I think there is some scientific
Yeah, I've heard that too.
support for listening to audiobooks actually is very similar to reading. I think the problem is, are you actually paying attention to what you're listening to in the same way that you have to pay attention when reading? If that
Right.
makes
Like
sense.
I've seen Ludwig listen to an audiobook and it's not.
Yeah.
His eyes
You
are
can
glazed over.
You can just you can just phase out while something happens to be on, right? But if you are intently listening to audiobooks, I think it might be the same. And I think that is the number one thing I could point to in my own life is when I was reading every day, I think I had a way better vocabulary and quickness in the way that I was able to like access and explain things. But that aside, my other part of this that I think absolutely has to do with this is it is related to phones, and phones are like the way this problem is dispersed in my mind. But the constant like activation you have access to all the time by scrolling things like TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, anything, or just the internet in general. Or for me, it's YouTube. Like I listen to a ton of YouTube and podcasts, and how I have to listen to those things almost all the time. I always am putting something on. And I think when you're pushing your brain like constantly, and you're constantly giving it, it's constantly in a state of stimulation, I think things that stand out are fewer and far between, and things become harder to retain and memorize. Like a lot of the way that you memorize or like hang on to things is strong emotional like responses to those things. So if say I did something wrong, like I betrayed you in some capacity, and there's two versions of this playing out. The version where you don't realize anything happened and we never talk about it.
Admitting to something.
And I've hidden it from you for years and you don't really know about it.
My
That
bank accounts
version,
are drained.
Every day your life is worse, and I'm watching you. I'm watching you suffer, and you have no idea it was me. It was me.
This whole time.
but there's some big lesson, like there might be something that I have to like learn from that or take away from that, that I might not take away because there's no big emotional moment that forces me to confront it. But if you got mad at me and we got into an argument, like a real argument, which we've never really done before,
we will.
it would be very distinct and fresh in your mind. Like that's something that heavily influences memory, is
Yeah.
like the emotional, maybe the emotional state. I'm sure there are better ways to describe this, but basically the state of being that you're in when you're consuming the information. But if you're in like a constant baseline state of information being spit at you all the time, and there's nothing to differentiate it from every other moment of your day, it's really hard to
Comes a
actually
sludge.
remember and retain it. And I've been talking about this a lot with some other friends because I think my memory has gotten worse. And I was like, I don't think I have like early onset dementia or something like that. I hope. I think it's just a consequence of the way that I am constantly engaging in messages, consuming media.